All right, guys, welcome back. Before we get started today, I'm going to give you a couple more minutes than I normally would, just because before we start our quiz here, this will be the end of this unit. So if you had any late work, incomplete work that you went back and finished, this will be your last chance. And I suspect with the snow, you haven't thought about some of that stuff in a bit. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes. So if you want to pull up Google Classroom to make sure you turned in certain things, that way you don't accidentally not get credit for something that you should have. Additionally, number 63 was the review. That was supposed to be turned in before class on Wednesday. Of course, we didn't have school on Wednesday, so as long as I have it in Google Classroom now, or you can come put it in the basket, but that's the first time I asked for that. You will also need a calculator for our quiz today, and you'll need to put your phones and smartwatches up. So take about 2 minutes to get all that settled and your desk cleared off, and then we'll get started.
Never seen radio glasses, the stories, radio stories, no? They're like they're sunglasses that have cameras on those glasses. Like it has them tapped, right? You can plug an app to it to keep the photos. So, you know, imagine how good of a cheat device that would be.
So you're saying I need to start doing phones, smartwatches, and smart glasses?
Well, maybe. What if I need to wear sunglasses? I don't know.
You're not supposed to wear sunglasses in the building anyway.
You're right. Well, I mean, they're also regular glasses too. They don't have to be not too.
Thank you.
What the hell am I holding my calculator? I was holding my calculator.
Mr. Townsend, is this a review?
That is the review. What number am I? I don't. There's already starting 14. So I just put mine in forward.
We're trying to land in that tree. Yeah. I've never seen it that big.
Okay, I've got all the work from this unit. Last call.
You can't possibly take away prescribed glasses, can you?
Well, prescribed glasses would not be connected to your smartphone.
Oh no, they have like, you know, regular glasses.
So you would have to get an extra pair of glasses.
I did not say that. Oh, Kayla's called one today. Holy, she was cold. I'll tell you. She was like, anything anybody said, she would start back. A pink tie. She wants you to wear a pink tie.
Alright, so all in all, this is a pretty short quiz. As promised, the formulas are on the top of the front page, so make sure that you note notice all of those. I guess I will warn you that I have had a student or two in the years of pre-cal that have copied the formula down wrong on a question and used it wrong because they didn't have the right formula. So be careful that you do copy it down correctly. You're not missing a 2, or you're not putting the numbers in a spot different than the formula says. I would have to grade it as is. This totals up to 30 points, which of course is not going to be a big deal at the end of the semester because many of our assessments will be 100 points like last semester, but for right now, this will be the only grade in the major category in grade book. So temporarily, it will be 60% of the grade. And even though it says it in the directions, and you should read the directions, we do insist on some questions. If you look at like 2, 3, and 4, the directions say you're going to get 2 points if you have the right answer, and 2 points if you have the formula with the numbers plugged in correctly. So the only reason I'm vocalizing that is even if you feel comfortable enough that you could go straight to your calculator, plug it in, get an answer, you would only be getting half credit on those questions. You need to write down what you're putting in your calculator to come up with that. Which you should really be doing anyway, because that way if your final answer is not off, I can give you the correct amount of points. You think of anything else direction-wise, feel free to ask. There's not a big rush here, as there's really 7 questions. If you want to do the bonus, it's on the bottom of the back page, but remember the bonus is over ambiguous case, so unless you went out and learned that on your own, because we did not teach that, that was just optional if you wanted to do that. You'll have to get both parts of the bonus right to get the bonus, and you need to have work shown. So, and I'll keep up. Of course, you guys should pick up your phones as you turn it in. And I'll let you know when all the quizzes are done. And then we're going to look at the 2 handouts you picked up on the way in. It's pretty short, but I need you to start thinking about the next topic. So we will be able to finish that up in class today too. But the quiz is what impacts your grade the most, so take the time that you need. there's still one more up here. It's just not that color one.
Mr. Townsend. This is
Not turned on.
no, sir. Not to look. Thank you.
Thank you. Bless you. Bless you. Guys, keep it down, please. If y'all can't stay quiet while people are still quizzing, I'm not going to keep you sitting by the people you're sitting by. All right, I think we've got them all in now. It also looks like there might be at least one phone that y'all didn't pick up. So if you didn't get your phone, you should go get it before you forget. I have a meeting after class, so I will not be in here. The door will be locked, and you'll just have to do without it all weekend if you forget it. Okay, so we need to start talking about the next unit, which was the 2 handouts you picked up, and it will not take us very long at all to look at these. I think there's a total of like 10 or 11 questions on there. But first, let me remind you that when we started this semester, I had mentioned that 6162 is usually one of the higher averages of the semester. And then the second unit we do, which is over limits, at least last year was the lowest average of the semester. And it's not that it's because it's that much harder. In fact, we actually try to drag it out a little bit and make it into very manageable sizes. So we'll spend a couple weeks on it. But it's pretty close to what we do in calculus the first 4 classes. We usually test on the 5th class and then move on from limits. So this is a real calculus topic, whereas all the trig we did last semester is really to help you with calculus. It's not calculus in itself, it's trig. It's a different type of mathematics. We'd like to do it at this point in the year, although it would have been nice to have been doing this about a week ago, because you guys know CAP stuff is coming up soon. Some people might be on the fence with calculus, and this gives you a little bit of an insight of kind of how we at least start calculus. And then the trade-off is if you do take calculus, then it makes those first couple weeks a little bit easier because you should know what you're doing. Yeah, okay, that's all I can say. So let's go ahead and look at what a limit is. And today we're going to talk about how to find a limit from a graph or a table. So I need you to jot down a couple things on the top of your page so that we can clear up a few misconceptions, hopefully right away, the stuff that I know students sometimes struggle with. Limits are often confused with points. So when we talk about points, just use 4, 3 for an example. This means if you go to exactly when x is 4, you know y is 3 there. A limit is kind of similar, but a limit is going to say LIM, short for limit, and instead of saying this, it's going to say as x approaches 4, and then you have to be told what you're looking at, and then that might equal 3. So the difference is a point is telling you look at this x value and report back the y value, or go to this x value and plot that y value. Whereas a limit means, and you need to write this in words, as x approaches that number, in this case 4, y gets closer or approaches this number. That doesn't mean that y is 3 when x is 4. It means that y is getting close to 3 as x approaches 4. So I will point this out in just a few questions. Why? Well, actually, we can see this in question 1, where if you get this too confused with the point, you can get that mixed up. But a limit, this is the number it approaches, the x value, and what the limit's equal to. All we're describing is the y value that it's approaching. Whether the y value is there, somewhere else, non-existent, doesn't matter. Whereas a point, it has to be exactly there. So the last part of the notes I need you to write down, we can do with question 1, and this doesn't come up on today's, but I need you to know this because we really need to be thinking of this as well. Sometimes you are asked something like, what is the limit as x approaches 3 from the left? And we use this little symbol that looks like a negative sign as an exponent. And what this means is from the left. So you simply go to the graph, you take an x value slightly less than 3, and then you inch your way towards when x is 3, and what value does it get closer to the closer my x value gets to 3? I'm asking you. Negative 4. There you go. So it's approaching negative 4 from the left. Now notice, negative 4 is not even a point. A limit does not care whether it exists or not, or if it's up here or down here. It could care less. A limit only cares about what are you approaching. Okay, we also have to test the limit as x approaches 3 from the right. So we use a little plus symbol here. This plus symbol means from the right, which would mean you would take an x value a little bit bigger than 3, move back towards the left so that you get closer and closer to 3, and then you should report back to what y value is approaching, not what y value is it equal to. That's a point. What y value is it approaching? And this is approaching negative 4 also. And if it's approaching negative 4 from the left and negative 4 from the right, then if it doesn't say from the left or the right, notice this one doesn't have a plus or a minus looking exponent on the 3. That means both. It has to be coming from both sides. That's the answer to this question, negative 4. So there's very little work to be done. I mean, we need to do this in our head, but we don't really need to write this down. We check the y value is approaching from the left of that x value, the y value that's approaching from the right of that x value, and if they're approaching the same thing, then that is what our answer is. Okay, so as x approaches 5, so from the left, it approaches negative 2. From the right, it approaches negative 2. And since it approaches the same thing on the left and the right, that's what the limit is equal to. Almost no work and very little that you have to know to be able to work these questions. You're just seeing what y value does it approach from the left and the right. If it's the same, that's your answer. And if it's different, we say that the limit does not exist. Okay, let me do a couple more for you and then I'll have you practice. I'll have you practice the next one before we go over. So here's h of x. I want to know what's the limit as x approaches 0. So in other words, what y value is it approaching from the left and the right? Well, from the left, it appears to be approaching a y value of 2. And from the right, it appears to be approaching a y value of 2. Notice it doesn't even exist at 2. There's a hole there. That does not matter for limits. If it's approaching the same number from the left and the right, then that is your limit. In fact, sometimes in calculus, I don't really do this in calculus, but some teachers do this where they literally just cover up x. Oh, here's the point down here. But they like cover up x equals 0. We could care less what's happening at x equals 0. We care what is happening to the left of it and to the right of it. That's all that matters. Okay, you try and commit yourself to an answer on number 4. See what your guess would be. Okay, what'd you come up with? -3, I would agree. So this is as x approaches -1. So from the left side of -1, it's getting closer to a y value of -3. From the right side of -3, it's approaching a y, I'm sorry, -1, it's approaching a y value of -3. If it's approaching -3 from the left and approaching -3 from the right, then -3 is your answer. Again, it's like you kind of have to train your brain to look at it a certain way, but then these should be about 5-second questions. Okay, on the next page, one little twist to this is it doesn't have to be a graph, it could be a table. So let me show you how I would look at the table, and then I'm going to ask you to try the other 3 questions on this page before we go over them. So number 5 wants to know what is the limit of g of x. So here's g of x in the table. as x approaches -2. So I have to think about what's it approaching from the left. So from the left would be you take an x value to the left of -2 and get closer to -2, and then see what happens to the y values. It looks like the y values are getting closer to what?
8.
Okay. Now we don't really know it's 8, but that's a good guess based on the information we have. Then we have to check from the right. So I take a number slightly bigger than -2, inch my way back towards -2, look at how the y values are changing, and what is that approaching?
8.
So if it's approaching 8 from the left and 8 from the right, the limit is 8. If it was approaching different numbers, we would say the limit does not exist. So a little different way to look at it, but same idea. Okay, so take a moment, try 6, 7, and 8. Make your best guess, commit yourself to an answer. You can change it if you need to, but I want you to try them before we go for them. Okay, so number 6 was the table. So as x approaches 1 from the left, it appears that the y value is approaching -6. From the right of 1, it seems like it's approaching -6. So if it's approaching the same thing on the left and the right, that's your answer. Number 6 should be -6. Okay, number 7. If this had said, what does it approach from the left only, you could have said 3. And sometimes you will see questions like that, just not today. If it had said from the right only, I know only from the right because of this plus sign. We come from the right of 4 and it approaches a y value of 6, and that could be the answer if this was the question. But since it doesn't put a minus or a plus sign here, that means not from the left or the right, it means both. And for the limit to exist, it has to approach the same number on the left and the right. So this limit did not exist, and you can abbreviate that as D and E. Even in AP Calculus, we allow that as an abbreviation. So if this was the question, the answer was 3. If that was the question, the answer was 6. But since it needed both, it's a way to describe what it's approaching. So for some, just depending on your perspective, you might think it's 3, the next person might think it's 6. We've got to be talking about the same thing, so they've got to be consistent. Okay, and I remembered this morning when I was going over this, I should have scrambled these up a little bit better, but that's okay. So as x approaches 0, it appears to be approaching a y value of 5. As x approaches 0 from the right, it appears to be approaching a y value of -5. But if it's approaching something different on the left and the right, then that limit does not exist. Again, it's about a 5-second question if you know what you're looking for. but you have to give over the idea of a point. I did not care anywhere in this question what's happening at x equals 0. I can completely cover that up, and it does not hinder me from doing a limit question. Okay, I would ask you to look at the last page, but instead I'm only going to ask you to do the last one because, again, I did not scramble these up very well. So, on number 9, it approaches -3 from the left and +2 on the right. So it does not exist. Not the same from the left and the right. Number 10, the limit as x approaches -5. Well, from the left it's 6, but from the right it's -4. It's not the same from the left and the right. It does not exist. This is what I meant, but I didn't scramble the questions up very well. So, but I do want you to try number 11 before we go over it, because it's kind of backwards. I'm telling you what the limit is, and I'm asking you to tell me what x value could it be approaching to come up with that limit. And there's multiple correct answers there. So try that. Then I will suggest that you maybe summarize some of this in just a quick sentence or two, because based on what I've seen the last couple years, people feel comfortable with this on day 1. It's a pretty easy topic, but then a week or 2 from now, they don't remember what they're supposed to be looking for. And again, especially when it doesn't take a lot of steps, you don't want this to be something that you have to start back on square one for. Okay, so what could be what could be one x value that it approaches to give us a limit of 3? Okay, I heard 2. So as it approaches 2 from the left and 2 from the right, I agree, that's 1. What else? Close, but I would. Okay, at 4, it approaches 3 from the right and 3 from the left, so I agree. If it had said as x approaches 4, the limit would be 3. Is there anywhere else? Here's it, y equals 3. So how about over here? It approaches 3 from the left and the right over there as well. So, I don't know. It's about -8.5, just guesstimating. But all of those x values approaches that from the left and the right. It approaches a y value of 3. Okay, so before I ask you to turn this in, is there any clarifying questions you'd like to ask about this? Again, this is meant to be a very small, manageable chunk, but don't let yourself not understand something and push it down the road, because that's where it's going to build up, and then it's going to make the difference between thinking your next test is easy or not. So, okay, so again, I highly suggest, not for me, but for you, to maybe summarize 1 or 2 quick sentences of things that you may not have thought were intuitive, things that you may forget in a week or 2 when you aren't looking at the same type of question every single day. So I would highly suggest you write that on the top of your page. I would also like you to turn in this 65 so I can give you a few classroom points. And there's no reason to wait to turn it in. You should have it done while you're here. So I'd like that. And it looks like we've still got about 25 minutes. So does anybody have Any interesting stories to share about your snow days? Stayed inside? Did anybody go sledding? Y'all too old for that? Too cold. It's supposed to be cold.
Found out that my
We only got stuff.
What did you do? Just get a hotel room and
No, we just didn't.
next thing there was like a whole different person. It was like the whole thing.
And we have a living quarters.
that's not too bad.
Kind of like over exaggerated. Like that was the first thing. Like I was walking out. T-shirt.
Today was
Like when
this
it was
morning
like
the wind chill was like -10.
when
The wind chill. Yeah.
His waders froze or something. He's starting to
I told Will like
Okay, I'm gonna leave the agenda up so that you remember to turn that in.
Yeah, why?